Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Relationship Success Support Hangouts. And in this episode, we're going to talk about, those moments where it seems that your relationship is doomed, where you don't see how to change things. The problem seems so massive. It's almost like you and your partner are living in different countries and different universes. How do you bridge that gap? It just seems impossible. Now, what do you do in those situations? Is there a way? Most people tend to break up when they get at that point, or they'll try to make up and make promises and let's try again, but then nothing really changes. So tonight I have with me a couple. Their names are Chris and Carrie. They're from Maine, USA, and they've just been through something quite amazing in how they we're at that point in their relationship of not knowing what to do. The problem seemed terrifying and insurmountable. But yet, how with standing and looking and really trying, how they were able to transform their relationship and completely turn it around. Hi, Chris. Hi, Carrie. Thank you so much for being with us. So, Carrie, can you tell us a bit about what happened in your relationship that made it suddenly so difficult?
For background, we've been together for 16 years. 16 years. Over time, our communication broke down. We weren't communicating effectively. We were reacting to each other. There was a lot of blame. And it just got to the point of we couldn't come to an agreement on anything. We couldn't discuss anything because even just being in the same room, we were reacting to each other. And that was just an accumulated thing over time of not being able to find solutions to the issues that we were having in the relationship.
Okay, cool. Was there also like specific events that took place? Like, often when problems accumulate over time, there will be like one or several specific events that take place where you're like, okay, this is it, enough now. Did something like that happen?
About a couple of years ago, we actually sat down and we made an agreement about this is your responsibility in the relationship, this is my responsibility in the relationship as far as getting things done around the house, and also defining what we could do and couldn't do in the relationship. And we came to an agreement on that. And in my perspective, I held up my end of the agreement that we had put together. And then one day, I found that he hadn't been holding up his end of the agreement in the relationship, and it was beyond anything that I could deal with at the time. And also, we weren't, as I said, we weren't able to communicate about any of it, so there was just no point at that point. So I had to make the decision to take the child and the dog and remove ourselves from the situation. Does that
So that was like, yes. So that was like the breaking point where you're like, okay, this is too much. I don't know what to do from where we have been and where we are now. It's like, what do I do? We're stuck. We have to do something else, try something else. And so that's when you decided to move out. Did I get that right?
Yeah, it was actually beyond stuck. It was like that moment in your life where your whole world just is blown apart. All of the beliefs that you had about your relationship, just gone in one moment. That was what it took for me anyway, to make that decision to say, okay, this is not what I thought it was, and this is not what I want to be in. This is not best for any of us.
Yeah. Okay. And Chris, how did you experience those events? Was it the same for you, where you were also just now fed up with it, or was it more of a shock for you to see like, oh dear, what have we done? You know, what was your experience?
It was more of a, it was more from the point of shock, as in, well, I guess you could compare it to is I got caught, or I can't get away from this with this anymore. This is no longer going to be tolerated. I need to change. Uh, so that was the point where I stood. Was, you know, it's kind of like an instant realization that everything you did was unacceptable. These are the consequences, and they're playing out right now in this moment. And for now, there's nothing you can do about it. There's no amount of talking, because talking is talking. It needs to be physical. It needs to be shown. It needs to be real. Um, so that's kind of how it played out within me. Um, you know, and with the speed in which it happened, it was, went to work on bad terms, came home, house was 3/4 empty, and nobody was here. It was just like that.
Yeah.
So
big wake up call.
exactly, that's pretty much what it is. Is it was just the slap in the face saying, "You got caught. That wasn't okay. This can't continue." You know.
Yeah. So then my question is, how did you manage to work through it? Because those sound like, you know, it was quite a severe like situation to get a relationship to that point. So how did you manage to work through it in a genuine and real and you know, thorough way?
For me, I was done. Him, it wasn't done.
Okay.
I wasn't done. I knew
He wasn't.
I I wasn't done, and I wasn't going to take it as done. I knew what was there when we first started our relationship 16 years ago. I was present during the whole thing. I know what I had done to unravel everything and to lead to it all. I know what I had blamed on her that I now was taking back to me, fixing within me, redirecting all of it. That I didn't see the ends justified the means at that point. I was like, nothing, this, yes, it was absolutely deplorable. It's, you know, you can't deny you did it. You take responsibility for it, but it doesn't mean it's over. I wasn't ready to give up. I felt that what was there in the beginning was still there now. It was just covered under layers and layers and layers of, for lack of better words, bullshit that needed to be gotten rid of.
But that's interesting that you say that, because I have done the exact same thing whenever, you know, in my relationship, came across a bump in the road, or like, as you say, more the sudden severe, like, whoa, what is this? Where did this come from? How did we get here? And it's the exact same thing I did, where I would look at, okay, that potential that I saw initially, that potential of the relationship with me and with you, do I still see that? Is that still there? And if it is, okay, cool, then we've got something to work with. That's exactly like you said, what was there in the beginning, it was still there. And I think a lot of people don't look at it that way, or don't naturally consider to think about that, and are more blinded by, as you say, all the layers and layers of, well, I won't repeat the word, but the more recent events, the fights, the conflict, the tension, that tends to take the focus. But when you take that step back and just place everything in a vacuum and look at, okay, you and me, I saw something way back when we met, is that still there? And I found that always a very cool grounding point. So thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome. And when we did split up, it wasn't like, of course, everybody, family, friends, and they all, they all become aware of it. And it seems like when a lot of relationships get to that point, like you brought up in the beginning, it usually doesn't make it past that point. There usually isn't a coming back, or if there is a coming back, it is so short-lived that it might as well have not even happened. But a lot of people I've seen, when they go through that split up, they'll go look at other people. They'll go look to have what they wanted in their relationship filled in with almost like a stand-in wife or a girlfriend or something like that. They'll still continue to look for that support and for that justification that what they did wasn't wrong. It's projected blame, where in our instance, we just stayed separated, communicating, and as non-reactive as possible. There's still going to be some reactions when it's that fresh and new, and you almost have to take your destiny process, and you've got to hit it hard. You've got to just really focus on, all right, this is it. I've got some points right here, and these cannot go on much longer because I've got to get over these for her, for me, for everything, for our son. It was going to work, and I knew it was going to work, and I would have accepted it if it hadn't, but it wouldn't have been without every last effort being made to bring it back to what it was.
Cool. So that really shows also that the commitment that you have with yourself and with each other was still very much there. So how was it then for you, Carrie? I can imagine for you it was more quite emotional time. Like, how did you manage to move past the emotional and look at, okay, it happened, what are the problems, and then start looking at solutions? How did you move through that?
That was an extensive process. I got a lot of support. I had my buddy. I also talked with Sinette, who supported me with the emotional stuff because I was a wreck. It was a trauma in a way. But I mean, again, I realized later on that it was self-created with all of these beliefs that I had made up about the relationship, and they begin with, I did it to myself. But at the time, with the real emotional stuff that was going on, Sunette told me, when you're experiencing those emotions, hug your son, hug your dog. And I had both of those two with me. He didn't have that support that I did. He had the cat, I mean, I had these two boys, and that was a big part of keeping me grounded, that and my buddy.
Awesome.
Plus, I've got some other friends that I talk to on a regular basis, and I was just completely, grounded in that way. And that did take some time to come out of. Just recently, I've just come to realize that instead of taking it personal, I have to make it personal.
Yeah.
That I have to seriously take a look at these points that I'm reacting to and be honest with myself about them, about things that I'm actually doing, patterns that are actually playing out in me that I haven't allowed myself to come to terms with. And that I just use whatever has gone on with him to distract myself from getting down and dirty with what's going on. And once I can write those things out, it just stops bothering me because I understand them. And I'm not projecting them onto him because I know it's all me. uh, so yeah, but in those moments when I was in like a complete possession with this, is just I have to stop and ask myself questions instead of just going into it. Why am I experiencing myself? And I'll write it in big letters. Why am I doing this? You know. And then as I do that, I calm down and I'm able to see things more clearly. And then I have the questions in front of me so that I can really take a self-honest look at them.
Awesome. So if I look and hear at both your stories and both your experiences, what stands out for me is that, you know, you both went separate ways, but what you did then was look and work with yourselves. You know, Chrissy had the point of, I have to change. And Carrie had that point of, I really have to work through these emotions. I have to now investigate, you know, what is it, where's my reactions coming from? You know, what is it saying about me? And that's interesting because it's one of those things most people also don't do. We have a tendency to focus on the relationship and on each other and everything my partner did wrong and, you know, everything that was not working and all the years of conflict and this and that and that. So it's very much about the relationship out there. And you guys have done something very refreshing and different, which was to both look at and sit with yourselves, even to the point of, you know, separating, not being with each other, just focus on yourselves and communicating over, you know, longer distance.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
Would you say that was important? Like, do you think you would be now where you are now if you hadn't done that?
No.
No, I don't think so.
Okay,
I don't.
cool.
I don't.
If we hadn't gotten to rock bottom, we wouldn't even be together, for one. Or, I don't know, if we hadn't gotten to rock bottom, I don't know. We'd just maybe still be miserable.
Probably.
We'd still be miserable.
It might look like a relationship, but
Yeah,
on the inside,
we were really
it would
good at
just
that.
be constant.
It was like a shock when we did separate because everyone saw us as soulmates, you know?
Well, that's because there was still those what got us together and why we were together. It was still there. It was just buried piles and piles and piles of daily stuff, just piled up on top of it. That if you were looking back at it, you could almost not even recognize it anymore.
Yeah.
You know, it had been so manipulated, so stretched, so conformed to make it fit what you wanted it to fit, what you wanted it to be, and what you believed it to be, that it wasn't even what was really there, you know.
Yeah, cool. So for each of you, you walked, you know, your own individual processes. So what was for each of you the most difficult point? That was the hardest to let go of or to change?
Me was taking everything personal.
To everything that Chris did, taking
yeah, everything
personal.
that happened,
Okay.
it was because I'm not good enough, you know, all of this stuff that they came up, all inferiority points for me, and blame. Man, was I angry. So that was the hardest part, was the point of betrayal and reestablishing trust, taking it personal, and the blame.
That's a lot of difficult points altogether right there.
Yeah. This has been an amazing life changer. I mean, it sucked. It sucked really bad, but man, it's been quite a gift too.
Interesting, hey, how that works.
Yeah.
And Chris, what was the hardest one for you?
The hardest one for me was just taking the responsibility and then walking the points of bringing things back to yourself and looking at it from her perspective, I guess, allowing myself to be wrong, allowing myself to see what she was experiencing and how my actions had played out with her. And then in my own personal process, it was looking outside of myself for justification that I was good enough, that I was doing the right thing, that I was important, anything like that. So developing my own self-honesty and such like that, that was quite difficult because I'd always been a master suppressor, as most males were. It was the breeding. So getting past those points, and then another hard part was just standing as support. Like as she would have issues, and when they would come out as a reaction, just standing calm and staying calm and not reacting. And then even the simple point of not doing anything. Like those certain times when your partner will come at you with something, and the best thing to do is just do nothing. Don't say anything, don't anything. Just almost just sit there and, okay. And then that's actually really difficult because sometimes it's hard to just keep your mouth shut. Let them figure it out. You had to figure it out for yourself. Let them figure it out. They'll experience it. So yeah, I guess
Interesting.
That has been the most awesome part for me, is that when I'm working through something, usually in the past when I was working through something or working on understanding something and, really focused on it, he would pick up on that and be like, what's wrong? What's going on? And, when I'm working on it, or just at that point of realization, oh my God, like, what is this? I don't have the words for it yet, so I'm trying to work it out and explain it at the same time. And while that's going on, it makes it doesn't come out right. And then everything would just kind of elevate from there, because he'd want to fix it. And it wasn't it wasn't going to be possible at that point because I didn't even understand it.
Exactly.
So once he stopped trying to fix it and allowed me to work through it with writing it down, looking at it, doing the self-forgiveness, and have a couple days to understand what I'm doing or what's going on. Wow, that is awesome. That support is just incredible.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So it sounds like a lot of what you had to learn to do was also to, see this is my responsibility, that's your responsibility, and not try and take responsibility from the other that is not yours to take. And at the same time, not taking things personally, that is actually also, again, not your responsibility, it's other person's responsibility. Chris, if I understand right, you also had to learn this whole process of working through points yourself, allowing yourself to see what's going on inside of you, the writing, the forgiveness.
Yeah.
With you walking that process, did that help you also to understand Carrie better and to see that in those moments, well, she just needed some time?
Oh, yes, certainly. That was huge. Like I said, I needed to start my process, and I needed to do it now. Like I was saying, it was almost like the crash course, DIP light, but amped up 10 steps. It's like, you need to grasp these concepts, you need to work through this, and you're going to put your buddy through hell because they're going to have to keep constant feedback. But yes, you just take responsibility for it. And after you stop the blame and you take, I keep using this word, but responsibility. Once you stop the blame, take the responsibility, it all just seemed simpler, I guess. The concepts and the the concepts just came quicker, I guess, it was easier to apply it, the
Yeah.
self-forgiveness and the writing.
Yeah.
And it made opening up the communication with her much more, there was more progress in it. It wasn't just words flying back and forth. It actually had substance to it. It actually came from a point of support. There was real physical meaning in the words, and then the words took on physical actions. And it also showed that, in a lot of relationships, the men are just always like, you never know what's going on in a woman's head. A woman's thinking about this. It was just programming. And then you just see it as, that's so wrong. And it's not that hard. I mean, you just have to take the time and you have to look at it and bring it back to yourself. And you can see that, yes, there are some differences, but they're nothing earth-shattering.
Yeah. Nothing insurmountable, actually.
Exactly.
Okay. So I'm really enjoying watching you guys sitting on the couch together, completely comfortable, like just another day, talking about everything you've been through. If you went back in time, back before everything went wrong, so to speak, did you imagine you guys would be at this point together, sitting like this on the couch together?
Yeah.
Yeah, in the beginning, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And after everything, went haywire, did you think this was still
No.
possible then?
No.
Yes. Her no. Me yes.
So what would you say to people who are in those points in their relationship where kind of, shit hits the fan and everything, their reality is just like crashing down and they see no way out? What would you suggest to them?
It's a matter of a decision that you make. Either you're gonna work together and look and see if the relationship can be fixed, or it can't. My process was pretty darn lengthy in figuring out if this is what I really wanted to commit myself to. So it's not an easy decision to make. I've got a notebook this full of writing and self-forgiveness and pros and cons lists, and just from that time that we were separated, working through it. If you want to be together after everything's crashed, it's going to take some work.
What I'd say is that, one, don't lose sight of what got you two together in the first place. Two, you've got to really take responsibility for yourself, and you've got to talk with your partner and almost come up with your own. You have to agree on a language. You have to agree on some definitions of some words so that you're not, when you say a word such as unhappy or happy or anything like that, what that really means as your relationship goes. Because for one, it might mean something that it doesn't for the other. And two, you've got to really work on yourself, because you could choose to end your relationship, go your separate ways. But if you haven't taken responsibility for yourself and worked on yourself, let's say you get into another relationship right off the bat where all the butterflies and rainbows are flying around and you're just totally taken in with it, what's going to stop that pattern from repeating itself over and over if you haven't learned anything from what led to the demise of the first relationship? That's
some great advice.
Yes, I agree.
I have another question. Do you think people should try and do this on their own, or do you think they should also look for support, like look for a counselor, or find a confidant, or should you do it just alone, or should you find support?
We had buddy support through Destiny, but we also, at my mother's request, we did have a marriage counselor, and we did go to marriage counseling, and the interesting part with that is that it was a lot of Destonian concepts that were coming out in our particular marriage counselor. She was an older woman, and she was very down to the point, very blunt. It worked out well. We almost had the similar vocabulary down as she did, so that when we are talking, she'd pick up on the keywords, and then all she had to do was give us those keywords, and it was almost like she was just pulling points out that we needed to work on for us from just our free speaking. So that, it's one of those avenues where I think you've got to be careful, because that could go either way, because you could have a counselor that just goes in and starts projecting themselves on you and their relationship on you and how it should work. So I guess it's just each situation's different, but as far as Destiny support goes, oh yeah, you've really got to, because a lot of these concepts, they're just not mainstream. It's so, there's plenty of fish in the sea, pull the plug, move on. You did what you could. Dust yourself
you did
off.
what you could.
Yeah, you did what, you're all right.
There's more people out there.
Oh, she's crazy. We told you she was crazy when we got together, and then just move on. So each situation's different. But yes, I do think you should have support.
Yeah.
And I think it needs to be unbiased support.
And how do you do that, unbiased support? How do you find that? Or what do you mean specifically?
The safest way is through Destiny, but let's say if you didn't have access to it or such, it's listening to the vocabulary of the person offering the support, I guess. If they start using blame words or words of projection or words of anything like that, then that's kind of a little ringing in the back of your mind saying, this isn't what's best. They don't have my best interest or our best interest. Who knows what their motivation is. So I guess it's just being aware and listening. That's a good question.
For me, it's all Destiny. Really. These are the only people that I trust, because it's, for one, most of the people in the group, or even, or like your buddy system specifically, these people have been through it. They've been where you are. And so they can see the pattern that you're working on, and they can assist you with that's a pattern, and also keeping it about yourself, your process, not anything else that's going on with the other person. This is about you. The relationship stuff, you can sort it out as it comes, but it all comes back to who are you in this situation. And I don't know many psychologists or therapists who do that.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, it's kind of like what Chris said as well. Like, if you don't sort out your own core issues, then whether it's this person, or if it's a new relationship, or maybe it will be a friend, or it will be a family member, the same patterns will start playing out again. So, and yeah, that's true. I mean, relationships don't exist on their own. You know, they don't exist out there. You know, this is a relationship. They only exist by virtue of the partners, and everything that exists in the relationship comes from and is created by the partners. So, you know, it does take some time, you know, to see like, whoa, you know, this is what we've created. Okay, how do you unravel it now and trace it back to this is my part. I know I participated in this. Okay, this is your part. You participated in that. Then, you know, release it all, deconstruct it in a way, and then look again at, okay, how are we going to move now from here? How do we do things differently? Did you guys have a chat like that, of like really sitting down together and say, okay, if we're going to do this, moving in together, working together, we have to do these things differently? Did you do that?
We didn't specifically set down a time, or we didn't specifically sit down together and come up with a plan. It was more like, okay, we're committing to this. This is what needs to be done first. And so we'd move on that. For us, it's been a gradual opening of points and realizations that we work on.
I guess that's about it. Yeah, we got rid of we moved through and we released the volatile points, the ones that could, you know, lay sleeping and then explode at any minute, and then it's all, damn, we're back where we began. So we moved through all of those, and now it's just been, you know, after we moved back in and we were back in our own physical space and everything else, it's just been, yeah, working through the points gradually as they come up.
Yeah, that's what it's been like, because all of our past relationship issues are coming up still, but we're
Right.
sorting them out a lot differently.
We're doing what we should have been doing back towards the beginning that would have alleviated all of everything that led up to the split.
Interesting. Very cool. And it's true, it does happen like that. You know, you work through the core points, but then there's always still stuff that's going to come up, and you're going to have to see like, oh, wait, I recognize this last time we did that. Okay, how do we work through it properly? And it's interesting because as you change yourself, even if it's the same point, it might look even entirely different, or the way you'll approach it will be entirely different. It's like, you know, you change you and everything else changes. It's fascinating.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
But everything changes. The relationship changes, everything, work changes, just nothing's the same.
And then I wanted to also bring everyone's attention to this interesting fact that Carrie told me about, that after you guys decided to move back in with each other, because, you know, Chris, you were in the one house, and Carrie, you were in the other house for a while, and then you had to move back in together, and now it's like you had double furniture. You know, you kind of had a lot of stuff to play with, and then went ahead and just redecorated your whole house, reorganized things, and you know, how was that for you guys?
It's so much better now.
Oh, it is better. Because I stayed in this house that we own, we bought, and then she rented a smaller house. And of course she had to furnish it and everything. But the cool part is that everything she bought new to put in that place was stuff that in this house really needed to be replaced.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like, okay, we can do this fairly simply. We're going to take the old couch, the old bed, everything. We're just going to throw it, open up the hole, and that way when we showed up with the moving truck, it was move everything in. But it was, and then everything just got moved around, points of clutter, stuff that we wanted to address anyway, even before everything went to hell. Just, it got done. It got acted on.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the cool thing. That was my favorite thing about being on my own. Everything was not cluttered. All of the things in the house were things that I like, things that I enjoy. So it wasn't a decision that I made with him. It was like the first decisions in a long time that I made on my own. And I really liked it. But when we moved in, even before we started moving in, for like 3 or 4 weeks prior to that, I'd been just bailing everything out that was cluttered and organizing everything, so that it could be comfortable and it could be enjoyable. And
Yeah, the garbage men loved us for about a month. They'd show up to a mountain of it up by the drive.
But the reason I wanted to bring it up is because the house generally represents yourself. So with both of you going through this whole remodeling inside yourself first, you know, this whole change and processes that you had to walk. And then also actually together in your house went and changed everything, you know, taking out the clutter, addressing things that should have been addressed a long time ago. Sounds quite familiar. Yeah? It's quite similar to yourselves. You know, it's that exact same process. So I found it really interesting when Carrie shared that.
that is very interesting.
That was really cool feedback for you guys as well. Like, you know, well, that's what happens. All right, guys. Do you guys have any last points you wanted to share with everyone?
No, nothing I can think of.
All good. All right. Thank you both so much for joining me tonight. It was very interesting, and I hope everyone who's watching or will be watching will be able to learn a lot from your guys' experience and heed all the suggestions and the advice that you've given, because, you know, they're not just saying it because they think that's how you should do it. I mean, they've actually walked it. Okay, so guys, use their advice, use the support. They've been there, they've gone through it, they're still working on it, but, you know, you have an actual reference right here. This is a success story right here. Okay, so thank you guys for coming. Anyone else who wants to later have or has questions for Chris and Carrie can please comment on the video, and then I'll ask them to respond. Okay, everyone, have a nice day, nice evening, nice morning, wherever you are in the world. Bye.